Bethesda Game Studio have a big issue with their development cycle right now. And this was really brought to my attention really because of this one tweet from Okami here on Twitter. Really showcases like the time between their games is just insane at this point now. Saying that the Elder Scrolls 6 trailer from E3 2018 is officially older than Skyrim was when it released. Because Skyrim released in November 2011, which is like, God, I can hear my knees creaking just looking at that date. So using the super high-tech graph, 2011 is Skyrim, and then you had 7 years later, you had the trailer right here, and then now it's 2025. That is another 7 years since the trailer's release, which is obviously they had some other things in the works since the announcement of this trailer, right? The year that they made the announcement, you had Fallout 76 be revealed and announced and showcase what the game's going to be like. Again, it wasn't exactly what players were expecting. They tried doing the ESO thing, but for Fallout, did not succeed for the longest time. It wasn't until the Fallout show until they actually started gaining a pretty good amount of momentum. This is where we had the fabulous memes of it just works in 16 times the detail. But more about Fallout later in this video, which is kind of heartbreaking to think about. Like, this presentation is so old. This is when they fully revealed Starfield to come out to the player base. And this trailer was just kind of like those cool little teaser things to get people excited, to let them know what's happening with Bethesda Game Studios. So they, between the time of announcing Starfield and showcasing it to the public for like the major first time showing it, and also having the game release, and also all the other things that have happened with Bethesda Game Studios since the launch of Starfield, especially with like even having DLC for the game, that we haven't even had an Elder Scrolls single player game in the longest time. And for it to be this long since we've had a true Skyrim experience, like yes, I said earlier, there is ESO where yeah, you can play on there if you wanted to get your Skyrim fix, but it doesn't hit the same as like a single player crafted RPG experience, which is what people are really looking forward when it comes to Bethesda quality games. Like yeah, like I said, you have your Fallout 76 fans, you have your ESO fans, but these RPG beats are what really set the tone for Bethesda and also the gaming industry as a whole. And I understand also not just releasing games out there, because that can definitely dilute your IP a lot. I mean, look at Call of Duty and all the sports games out there. But the thing is that you can't really make your fans wait 14 years between main title games. Though of course with Bethesda RPG games, there are a lot of crossovers because they all generally kind of have the same type of vibe, right? Same kind of feel, just different types of things that they might add to it depending on the IP itself, like Skyrim, Fallout, now Starfield thrown in there. So it might not feel like it's been 14 years since we've had like a true Bethesda game, because like what we had Fallout 4 released in 2015, so I'm sure a lot of the fans from Skyrim hopped over to play Fallout as well. But the real kicker is we didn't get a major Bethesda RPG single player experience until Starfield in 2023. And that's, I mean, yeah, you've had like ESO, like I said, and Fallout 76 between there, but those are more live service ongoing games that don't really scratch the same itch and might not have the same type of audience crossover. And for how meh Starfield has been received by the general gaming public, like it's not a bad game, especially, but just compared to like the game quality of games we had in 2023, which is like a generational year worth of gaming releases, that when Starfield released, it was probably like a little bit more hated on than it actually deserved. But then we had the Shattered Space DLC that came out at the end of 2024, which was overall just not received well at all by the community. And that's really just because it felt like it was lacking the quality you would expect to see or take any feedback from the community that they had been talking about for the longest time, and just really didn't really have much to add to the game. It was more just more Starfield rather than like in a true expansion like we saw with like Far Harbor from Fallout 4, various other expansions that Bethesda has made. So at this current pace, we do know that yes, it's been in the works since 2018 at least, but I mean, this trailer was definitely made more for just like recruitment's sake, right? So then they can just say we want to hire people for Elder Scrolls 6 without having to be using code names for job descriptions and be so secretive, and these type of games being in projects for so long that eventually leaks are going to happen and people find out that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to happen. So it's like, yeah, it makes sense to just kind of just announce it, just so then you can just get it out there and then let the gaming community run wild with it. But the thing is that like, when you announce things this far in advance, that it just really makes you feel like this is this even happening? How long do we have to wait? Especially with the pace that Bethesda has been working at in the last few years. Like, we have years until Elder Scrolls 6 gets revealed, unless Xbox just has a massive ace up the sleeve this year for 2024's showcase. So let's go back to our high-tech graph technology to break it down, to visualize like the time frames we're talking about here. Like 2025, I don't expect anything for Elder Scrolls 6. I'd say at the absolute best, Elder Scrolls 6 releases in 2026. Meaning we'll most likely have like a DLC that comes with it as well the following year. It seems to be a general trend that we see from Bethesda, but then that means that then production will start for the next Fallout game. And for how popular Fallout is right now, you gotta hit it when the iron is hot. Like what Sony is doing right now with Helldivers, making an actual movie off of Helldivers 2 within the first year of the game being released. But you see right here that like production will start for Fallout, meaning like probably at best we'll get Fallout in 2035 for Fallout 5. Like, it can't take that long, guys. Like, there has to be something that needs to change when it comes to development of Bethesda products. You can't wait 20 years between titles to release a new iteration, right? Like I said earlier, like, we understand that, like, yeah, you don't want to dilute the product. And Todd Howard has said he doesn't mind the fan base waiting, which totally makes sense. Again, like, it kind of plays into the whole thing that anticipation and waiting for the next game is a big part of what causes its success so many times. But 20 years, dude, that's generations. That's a whole generation you've just missed of gamers because of you're slow at making products. The only thing we actually really know about Bethesda titles coming out anytime soon would be the Elder Scrolls Oblivion remake coming in, which should be actually made on Unreal Engine 5, according to all the leaks and rumors that we've heard about this, releasing probably at the end of 2025 to kind of get that, scratch that itch for you Elder Scrolls fans out there. But of course, also being made in Unreal Engine 5, if this actually is a success, I think will also lead to more issues with Bethesda fans not being happy with Bethesda continuing on with the Creation Engine. And it has been confirmed that Elder Scrolls 6 will be on Creation Engine 2, the same engine of Starfield. Obviously, there'll be some improvements made from there. And for your Fallout fans out there, we do know that according to some FTC leaked documents when Microsoft was trying to buy Bethesda at the time, that Fallout 3 remaster is currently in the works. From the initial time frame, it has slipped a little bit from its initial release time frame, but it's still currently in the works right now. I mean, it's all been leaked and has not been officially announced, but I mean, we have official documentation that we know it's happening. Remasters and remakes are fantastic. It's a great way to revitalize the interest in a franchise, but they don't substitute a new full release. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Fallout 5 fall to, I don't know, probably 2024. I mean, it's a possibility from this current time schedule that Bethesda's working on right now. So clearly something needs to change when it comes to Bethesda and how they are making their games nowadays. I understand that game development has become more complicated, more expensive, and more difficult than ever before, but you still need to find ways to effectively release products for people to enjoy. So I didn't expect 2025 to start off this awesome if you're a Helldivers fan, because it was just announced that Sony is doing a Helldivers 2 film in production right now. This was announced at CES. This is a big show when it comes to announcing major tech announcements. And so obviously one of the best selling games of 2024. Apparently it's Sony's highest selling game, fastest selling game that they've had, I think, ever, was Helldivers 2. So it makes sense to make that expand into something a little bit larger, right? But putting Helldivers 2 into a movie format just seems like there's going to be some issues, because we all know that Helldivers 2 takes a massive amount of inspiration from Starship Troopers, which is a fun movie, great like summer action film kind of thing. But I'm wondering like how it's going to actually play out with Helldivers 2. I mean, like, obviously it's a different type of tonality when it comes to Helldivers 2 compared to like Starship Troopers, but on face value, it's people with big guns in armor shooting big bugs. And that's where my biggest concern is if you're going to try to adapt Helldivers 2 into a movie format, that if you're trying to go like big screen, like nationwide quality movie, which Sony definitely has the resources to do so, it makes me think, okay, well, how are you going to try to differentiate it from Starship Troopers? Because I think anyone who just sees it at surface level value, they'll see like, okay, you're out in space, it's sci-fi shooting bugs with guns. And then you're gonna be like, well, that's just copying Starship Troopers. And to the unknowing person, that would be a logical conclusion to make. Obviously, Starship Troopers and Helldivers 2 are very different in tonality wise, where a lot of humor and comedy is infused with Helldivers 2 and a little bit tongue-in-cheekness when it comes to managed democracy and, fighting for super Earth when really you're fighting for like a ultimate fascist regime, but it's kind of playing into like brainwash marketing, but it's very upfront into your face, where Starship Troopers was much more passive when it comes to that messaging. There's also no word right now and on this article at all, or even mentioned right now online, that if it's going to be live action or animated. I would have to think for a movie, if you want it to be pretty good, I think you would have to go with animated. I think as a high quality, CGI animated film, I think would be the best way to capture the worlds and the essence of what Helldivers is. I mean, there's even a Starship Troopers actual video game that has been out. People have had a chance to play. Now, the gameplay is definitely different. It's much more base building and defense rather than Helldivers 2, where it's kind of more like extraction, open worldy kind of shooter kind of thing. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's definitely a difference between the two games, and they can rightfully, can coexist at the same time, because I don't think they try quite capture the same kind of vibe. But you can still see, like, in face value, that there are similarities there to be had. So I'm kind of curious how exactly Sony goes about capturing that difference. And from more recent experiences with Sony films, I'm a little nervous about that. First thing that comes to mind here is Craven, which has not been received very well. You can see here on the ratings, like IMDb is a 5.4, Rotten Tomatoes 16%, IGN gives it a 3. Now, Rotten Tomatoes has been a little more favorable, like in the 70s when it comes to rating, but it could be just fan favorites kind of stuff. Has not done well. Or other films like Morbius, if you guys remember this one. Oh my god, this one got lambasted over here, like 15% Rotten Tomatoes, 5 on IMDb, a 4 from Screen Rant. Like, people were not fans of these Sony movies, and they seem to be really hit or really miss. But one that really hit was definitely The Last of Us HBO show. This one was absolutely incredible, and they actually did announce that the second season is releasing in April, so you got that to look forward to. So it just kind of depends on exactly like how they go about doing these films, right, or adaptations. They can be great or just a complete bomb. They even showed here, like I looked up on the Sony PlayStation Productions, right, when it comes to their games coming to adaptation, like Uncharted was kind of received rather meh. It was not bad, but wasn't really great. Gran Turismo, I saw that was definitely a big difference between the reviewers. Didn't really find the movie that great, but then the players and the general public loved Gran Turismo. They also talked about New Dawn. We have all these different types of adaptations coming in. You had Last of Us, obviously huge success, but then also you had Twisted Metal, not very good. And like I was trying to convey earlier with Helldivers 2, there is that fine line you need to ride. Like, it's not a full-on comedy, but it's very comedic. It's also very dramatic and serious at the same time, with like the overtones of political messaging all over the place, like propaganda being a major part. It's something that Sony really needs to nail correctly if they're going to actually do this properly, or if they're just looking to do a quick cash grab, which obviously that's something that Sony has been known to do. And also, how is it going to try to obviously differentiate itself from Starship Troopers, from the casual audience? It could also just depend exactly how they decide to distribute this. If it's just going to be on streaming services, right? Like you go to Amazon Prime, like, yeah, you're going to find just the Helldivers fans and they'll enjoy that, right? If you're talking big screen, nationwide kind of stuff like what we're talking about earlier, well, then that's where you're going to have that issue of the comparison with Starship Troopers, and the people who are not knowing of the Helldivers IP would definitely find it very confusing, to say the least. It would also be rather interesting how they tried to write up a story for Helldivers 2, because typically you need like a main character, a main villain, right? And yeah, like Starship Troopers, everyone was on the same team, but you still had adversarial characters within the troop of your main character that was in Starship Troopers. So there just needs to be some form of kind of like interpersonal conflict that's more intelligent than just shooting bugs and robots and now weird space aliens. And hopefully this all ties into actual lore, which we do know that the developers over at Airhead are very conscious about that. And whenever they add anything to Helldivers 2 that it is part of the lore. Because the lead over there at Arrowhead Studios recently talked about this, and I talked about this on the channel as well. This is more tied to where they draw the line when it comes to customization with further collaborations with other types of games out there, right? With the recent Killzone collaboration, and someone also wrote this graphic saying like, where do you draw the line? Do you go up to Master Chief, but then you don't do Snoop Dogg, or do you consider Snoop Dogg as a playable character in a way? And I really appreciate what the lead over there at Arrowhead Studios had to say, basically showcasing that this is where he draws the line when it comes to crossovers and different things like that, which then also kind of goes into a little bit more about exactly like what it all means and how these are actually tied to actual lore. They posted this along with the discussion saying that like, remember crossover lore would become canon for Helldivers 2. So I would imagine that this would also be part of Helldivers 2 lore if you actually make a full-on productive movie about this game. Unlike some game adaptations that weren't exactly faithful to the source material, this just must be just such a wild ride for the developers over at Arrowhead, going from like a lowly known studio who made a game like almost 9 years ago, 10 years ago now at this point with Helldivers 1, to make Helldivers 2 become a cultural phenomenon, and within a year of the game releasing, you're already having a full-fledged movie based off of your IP. Like, that's wild, dude. But kudos to Sony for hitting the iron while it's hot. Obviously, this was just announced. The news is still hot off the press right now, so there's still a lot of details to figure out exactly what's going to happen with Helldivers 2. We all kind of expected this, right, with the invention of Game Pass, bringing all these amazing titles onto one platform as a subscription service, but you would think it's going to eat into sales in some kind of capacity, but we never really know how much. But actually, it was just revealed that Xbox games in Game Pass can lose up to 80% of premium sales as claimed. This comes from business journalist Christopher Dring. And there's one key word that he says when it comes to making this claim that I think is much more important than just saying like, I believe or I think. Because he says, anecdotally, games are in Game Pass can expect to lose around 80% of expected premium sales on Xbox. Now the key word I'm saying here is anecdotally. That's very different than like, I believe or I think. That's saying that like he has information that he knows of at least one game that did experience that type of loss, which is kind of crazy. But you also have to imagine that kind of number probably affects much more of the smaller type of game, right? Like the AA type of game or something like that. Because you know, like these big name titles, like people are gonna buy them or play them no matter what. But you have to think that still Game Pass has to eat into that a little bit. And he does mention that within this article, saying that's the figure that gets thrown around. It's less if it's a big mainstream release, but generally look at how low Hellblade 2 charted, or where Indiana Jones came in, or even Starfield. Like Game Pass clearly hurts sales of those titles. But of course they make it up in Game Pass subscriptions, right? Most people don't really buy a whole lot of games. It says right here specifically grabbing some information from some of these news articles saying between 5 to 10 games per year is what an average gamer would buy. But say on different platforms it does make a difference. And like on Steam, the data shows a median of 4 games per year. Then you look at the current pricing model for Game Pass. For a core it's $10 a month, standard is $15, and ultimate is $20. So if you break that down compared to the cost of Game Pass to the average amount of games you can actually buy per year, I made an amazing high-tech graph to showcase you what it looks like. So core dropping $120 a year, which is about 1.7 games at $70, is not taking tax into consideration here. Standard being about 2.5 games a year, and ultimate being about 3.4 games a year. Now, of course, the big question with Game Pass is how does that money go towards the developers? And of course, there are multiple ways that can happen, but one of the ways that's actually mentioned here is saying that through a combination of upfront payments from Microsoft for adding their games into the service, engagement-based payouts depending on how many people play their game on the platform, and sometimes even a revenue share based on overall Game Pass subscriptions. So that Microsoft has their own like internal tracking how to do it. It's pretty complicated, but doing something so crazy like Game Pass can be a rather complicated new way to share revenue when it comes to these game studios. So I think it really kind of also shows that like, hey, like you know, it's probably best to do like some kind of ongoing service kind of thing, which has been, I think, been a really big concern with a lot of people. But we've seen that with Xbox, they are still invested with like single player games because they help push the game service forward. But with Xbox's recent huge push to be multi-platform, multi-device, that they're showcasing how they actually can affect the PlayStation sales quite a bit, right? Stated here in the same article saying, but if the game is multi-platform, it can be beneficial. That surge of players on Xbox can have a strong impact on sales on PlayStation, for instance. Now, some people read that as saying like strong impact as in a benefit to PlayStation, as in like you can get the game on Game Pass or you can own it on PlayStation. But I have a feeling of saying I have a huge surge of players on Xbox. This means a strong impact, as in very strongly impacting the sales of PlayStation to actually be less than what they would expect, which ultimately is Xbox's biggest competitor. Now, Game Pass does have its benefits, right? Where you can just jump in and try a game, right? And if you enjoy it, you can keep playing it. That's kind of how I felt with like Stalker 2. I mean, I was excited about it. I've never played a Stalker game, and I don't know if I would drop $70 to drop in and play it. Same thing maybe with Indiana Jones. But since it's on Game Pass, yeah, I'm going to jump in and play it. And I've been loving those games. So that's a huge benefit when it comes to this type of service. But it also mentions about how with indie games, right, smaller titles, AA, maybe even single A or single developer type games, that like you kind of have to be on Game Pass to even get noticed. Saying right here, saying try being an indie game on Xbox right now that's not on Game Pass. But also getting people to play your game in 2024 and 2025 is so hard. And subscriptions gets games in front of a lot of people. So again, big thing right there. Like it kind of forces smaller dev studios to be on Game Pass, right? That you would never really see them actually ever get like the opportunity to really get a lot of people to play it because it's part of the service. But then you kind of have to be part of the service to get the opportunity to even be played. Kind of a catch-22 kind of situation. But also with larger games on Game Pass, it does have the ability to affect smaller games as well in a beneficial way. Saying right here, we know from data that there are a lot of people who only play Call of Duty. And if there are some people dedicated to get Call of Duty this year via Game Pass, those very same people took the opportunity to play some other Game Pass games that wouldn't otherwise be played. So it's hard to argue that it's a bad thing. It also goes on to kind of state right here within the article, this is more from Video Games Chronicle, saying how like the physical sales have gone down quite a bit. I thought it was rather interesting saying physical sales have gone down nearly 35% in the UK just from last year, from year to year, which is just wild to think that much of a drop. Of course, 2023 was a pretty special year when it comes to games. Like there was so many like God I Plague type of games, but still like a 35% drop. That's quite big. But we do have actual hard evidence that Game Pass hasn't really hurt the sales, at least of one game in particular, that being Call of Duty, saying yes, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was the best-selling video game in the United States in October and November of 2024. I mean, one is that, yeah, Black Ops 6 was a solid Call of Duty game. Like the campaign was fun. Multiplayer is good, just not really for me anymore. Of course, Warzone's been having its own issues right now, but the Zombies I've heard is also really great as well. I mean, it also broke records for Game Pass subscriptions. No surprise there for how popular Call of Duty is, even with Warzone being free. Like you can really just download it and play it whatever platform you want. You can be a Battle.net player, you can be a PlayStation player, but it still broke sales records right here with Game Pass subscriptions as well. So people made that jump over so they can play the multiplayer and play the campaign, play the zombies. Game Pass as a service I feel is really interesting to see how they do it. We've seen the other publishers follow suit with EA with their EA Play, Ubisoft with Ubisoft Plus, and an interesting turn of events, I guess is the way to put it. You can see here that Jim Ryan, the former CEO of PlayStation, did say that Game Pass on Xbox is value destructive back in 2023 of June. And then but then there's also PlayStation Plus now, so you can play any kind of premium title you want. It's basically their equivalent of Game Pass, which I just find kind of funny that like you would have like such a outgoing CEO, right, make a big statement like that and then have PlayStation Plus as something you can do on PlayStation as well. So there has to be something there, right, with all these other publishers and platforms doing a similar game service subscription thing, kind of like Netflix but for games. So there has to be something there. I'm curious to see what the future has as a whole, because it's still rather new when it comes to the gaming industry as a whole, especially with Xbox's multi-platform philosophy when it comes to gaming, because they are a distant third console when it comes to amount of people playing on that platform. So they need to reach as many people as possible to stay relevant within the gaming industry. Overall, Game Pass is a pretty sweet deal. I buy into it so I can play these other games and play more games than I would actually if I was going to spend the money individually to buy these games, so I can be much more of a well-rounded gamer. Well, the long-awaited announcement of the 50 series cards have just been announced. We have the 5090, 5080, and 5070, with Nvidia stating that the low-end card, the 5070, will actually beat the 4090 in performance and only at $550 when it comes to cost compared to the 4090 cost, which is a little bit more than that. They also announced DLSS 4, Reflex 2, and multi-frame generation. So a lot of stuff to dig into this video, guys. So if you like these type of videos, like, subscribe, always appreciate it. Let's get right into those details. So last night, CES just happened. It is a major part of the tech industry where they get to jump on stage, showcase all their cool new stuff. And we got a chance to see the 50 series cards in action. And some of the stuff that they showed was actually like rather incredible. This whole thing revealing their new architecture Blackwell, which allows the 50 series cards to have some extra features that maybe your 40 series or 30 series or even your 20 series cards users out there might not have opportunities to use, but showcasing like the crazy stuff that they're doing in the future. Basically, they just took all their features that you already like from Nvidia and they found a way to just make it better, showcasing how you can have these amazing environments at this type of frame rate, which I'm looking at the video right here. The live stream quality was definitely not what it needed to be right there, but showcasing the difference in like standards of different types of materials to see how the lighting interacts with it. Like, it really makes a huge difference when it comes to different materials, how they're able to actually be represented in the game worlds themselves and how they're rendered out. And basically, yeah, like I said earlier, they just took all the stuff that they already are doing and just found a way to make it better. A lot of it utilizing the magic word AI. So let's go down the list. Let's start with the most familiar stuff you guys are probably using the most of is DLSS and ray tracing and what they're doing to actually improve this stuff. Basically, DLSS in this presentation, they used a lot of technical jargon when it comes to how they compute and make things better, but basically it's just better. It's DLSS 4. It's the same type of service that you are very familiar with, but it just does it better. Though the biggest issue with DLSS is that it just kind of smears everything, right? It makes everything look lower res. Well, they showcase here an actual image of like the comparison here on Forbidden West, where you can see the current version of the super resolution, then the newer version of it. Again, this is all kind of using AI to kind of predict frames and textures to just make it look like how you want to expect it to perform. We're using these high-end graphics cards. You can see here specifically with Alan Wake 2 that if you kind of zoom in, you can kind of see like the anti-aliasing kind of jagged edges when it comes to the power lines compared to the new one. Much smoother, much more in line with what you'd expect it to look like. Okay, that's all good enough, but what's the performance looking like? Well, they showed this one right here, which I thought is very important to show. So this is a difference between DLSS 4 off, getting 22 frames, turn it on, you get 87 frames within this singular game. And you can see how much better the visual quality actually is with DLSS 4. Again, this is a compressed YouTube video, so there is that to take in consideration. Let me take my webcam off so you can see a little better. But you get the idea of what we're talking about here. Like, that's a significant boost, but they also tagged this up with multi-frame generation. What frame generation currently does now is that it just basically adds an extra frame trying to predict what the frame that was going to render was going to look like. And for the most part, like, it does a pretty good job. It does add some input latency on there. And again, like, sometimes the image can be a little blurry, but I think we're gonna see massive improvements here. So this is showcasing like the rendered frame and then the generated frame from the predicted AI workflow that they have over there. But now they have the ability to actually triple this right now with 3 frames that can actually predictively render using AI optical flow and actually only have to render 1 actual frame, meaning you're going to see a massive increase to performance. They showcase Cyberpunk 2077 right here in the Ultimate Edition. And just this combination alone, they just kind of really quickly went over it, but you can kind of see just like generally what the difference is, right? DLSS off full RT, you get 27 frames. DLSS 4 on with all the extra goodies, 238 frames. Now this video quality here on YouTube is again not very good, because these type of things are really tough to convey over a YouTube video or even on a video like you're watching here right now. It's one of those things you really need to see for yourself to really understand, like, is this something that's going to actually improve my gameplay experience? But like I stated earlier, with frame generation comes input latency, and it's enough to where it can really kind of get in the way of the experience. But now that they actually have updated Reflex now, where you have Reflex 2, which is something I think you definitely need to check out. It's really interesting what they're doing with this. Essentially what they're doing is that they're predicting the player's movement and generating what needs to be there, so you have an experience of lower latency, when in actuality they're really just doing more high calculations to really make it feel like it's better. They do some framework. Again, I'm not trying to bore you with all the jargon here. Let me try to explain. They actually do a pretty good job here of showcasing like what they're talking about here. Basically, they're doing like this warp technology, where basically they, again, like, they're predicting the frames to kind of help you feel like you're more in tune with the character. Showcasing here in a game like Valorant, where they have literally like 1 to 2 to 3 millisecond delay when it comes to your inputs, which is just effectively instantaneous, which actually might even feel kind of weird. Here they showcase like what it looks like with their whole in painting, right, where it talks about like generating the areas that they're predicting, right, where so basically this is what the game is doing, and without kind of trying to cover it up, the white edges are where the warping is happening, so then it helps move your cursor fast to where you want it to go, and then you have the in painting, which kind of cleans up all that mess on there. But that is just wild to think, like, this is what they're talking about with the frame warping and like trying to predict where your character is moving. Like, it's some like instantaneous, like hundreds of calculations a second type of stuff that's happening, but it's wild. And with this test with the finals, which by the way, fun game, you guys haven't tried playing it yet. So with Reflex off, you have about a 56 millisecond delay of input delay. Reflex 1, 27 milliseconds, and that basically cuts it down in half with Reflex 2. Okay, yeah, you probably want to know, okay, how much is all this going to cost me? Well, they actually announced that too. Big surprise, right? They showcase right here. Let me take off my webcam so you can see 5090 being around $2,000, the 5080 being right around $1,000, the 5070 Ti 750, and the 5070 right here being at $550. All available in January, which when I see those price points, I'm like, those are fantastic price points. It makes me want to upgrade, but the big thing is, how much availability is there going to be for these cards? Because if it's in high demand and low stock, that's going to jack that price up super fast. I'm sure we all remember the great chip shortage of 2020 to 2023, right? With the 30 series cards. I remember trying to get this. This was actually like just tough to get a 30 series card. I wanted to get a 3080, but I didn't want to drop $5,000 to do it. I also just hope that this doesn't lead to game developers relying on these tools a little too much. We're starting to see that a bit now as the current generation of consoles are really starting to hit their limits when it comes to graphical fidelity, and now you're starting to rely on things like frame generation, DLSS to hit frame rates so you actually want to hit. Whenever there's a new graphics card launch, guys, it's a big step forward within the industry. It gets me excited to see what's going to be capable moving forward, especially if a 5070 is going to outperform a 4090. Until then, we'll just have to wait and see. Are you guys going to be able to get these new cards? They're going to be coming out here soon. Let me know in the comments. While Nvidia had a really strong showing at CES, showcasing all their cool new tech and all the stuff that they're doing, which is honestly quite phenomenal what they're able to pull off, but a lot of people are not happy, mainly using this main quote from Jensen Huang to really kind of encapsulate everything.
Blackwell architecture, the GPU is just a beast. 4090 performance at 549.
When I was looking into more of the information, I was checking out Jay's 2 cents. He does great tech reviews on that channel right here. Then the top comment is saying the 49 performance from a 5070 claim will go down as one of the most dishonest marketing claims to date. And looking more into the specs and the performance of this new generation of cards, I feel like this is going to benefit more your low-end gamers than your high-end gamers. And we'll talk about that in this video. So if you're wondering, okay, well, they're saying you get this type of performance, but then it's not for some reason. So how's this actually happening? Well, Keynote continue on, mainly showcasing all the AI that they added into their new Blackwell technology, mainly showcasing the frame generation, right? Where you can have 2x, 3x, or even 4x the amount of frames being generated through AI. So really your graphics card isn't working harder, it's kind of just working smarter in a way. With the current situation with DLSS and frame generation, that kind of creates a bit of a blurry image for people's enjoyment. And when you buy these high-end graphics cards, you want a high-end experience, and having just kind of being like a low-res image upscaled to higher resolution creates like an artifacting and bit of wonkiness that happens that it's not really preferred by a lot of people, but a lot of times they just go with it as it gets the desired frame rates that they want out of their games. So people don't want more AI. What they really want is more VRAM, more power, put some more horses in that engine, you know, to make that thing run faster. But it seems like it's only more of an incremental increase with the 50 series over the 40 series graphics cards, and I actually have some graphs and stats to show you on this one. Found this on Linus Tech Tips Reddit page here, showcasing a side-by-side comparison between the 50 series and 40 series cards. And as you can see, when it comes to like the VRAM specifically, there really isn't much of an increase at all if you're going, unless you're going with like a 5090, but that's if you're like the top like 0.05% of gamers who can actually afford that and actually go with that kind of that type of graphics card. For the most of the time, the VRAM is staying about the same, which is not really getting too many people excited. And also you can see the CUDA cores, right? This is kind of like a bit of like the horsepower, right, of the graphics card. These are more kind of incremental increases, right, that you would see from just like one series to another. So it's more like nothing really too flashy or too nothing really to get people excited about it for the most part. But one thing I think gets people really excited about these graphic cards is more about the pricing on them. You can see that in comparison that the 5070 right here is at $550 compared to a 4070 being $599. And actually, overall, most of these are actually cheaper except for the 5090 version. So you can see where people are getting upset with hearing you're getting 4090 performance from a 5070, and that's really not truly the case, because obviously with the raw stats here, you have half the VRAM and about 2.5 times less when it comes to the CUDA core. So you're just making this bold statement that your card can perform so much better, but that's because of AI crutching it. And that's why we're starting to see this discourse online about the Nvidia graphics card announcement, saying that they're like a scam and it's more fake frames and that Nvidia is lying to you. And with the graphs that Nvidia are showing when it comes to like how much better the performance is with these new 50 series cards, it's like, yeah, but there's an asterisk behind that. Here on the Nvidia Reddit page, it did actually go into a little bit about like all the stuff that was kind of in their various blogs and showcasing like comparisons when it comes to like the previous generation of cards and what they're currently doing now. You can see the green bars being the cool new fancy things, but I think what's really important to take note of that they are utilizing DLSS 4 and also frame generation when it comes to getting these insane frame rates. I think the main thing we want to take a look at here is definitely the 5070 performance compared to like the 4070. Of course, they didn't make a raw comparison here on this one, which I think the interesting thing I think we have to really point out is that when we're looking at this, that they actually have Far Cry 6, but it's not utilizing DLSS. So this line right here might be more of a true indication of what the actual performance increase will be when it comes to the previous generation of cards, right? Kind of interesting why, like on Nvidia's page, why you didn't see any direct comparisons between a 5070 and a 4090. And I think, yeah, performance and hardware statistics are definitely two different things. They're using the term performance as in like, this is the perceived experience of performance rather than raw horsepower performance. But you can see with the 5070, and this is also just the same throughout the other graphics cards when it comes to performance compared to the previous generation, they're showcasing like, oh my gosh, doubled the performance, right? But only like it's that much of an actual hardware increase. Aren't we just like the best? Though these improvements that we are seeing from Nvidia when it comes to DLSS and multi-frame generation, that they actually are genuinely huge improvements when it comes to this AI technology, and could potentially be much more of the future of rather than trying to focus on how much more powerful your actual cards can be, that they will just find ways around it to give you the same experience, but maybe not tax them so hard and try to push their cards further. The guys over at Digital Foundry, which I mean, like, come on, you gotta give them a subscribe if you're caring about like technological advances in gaming and things like that. They did a great job of showcasing the difference here between DLSS and the new version of DLSS. And when they zoom in here, keep an eye on the left blue screen here. You can see how The traditional DLSS is much more blurry and definitely has a lot more ghosting that happens, which is definitely still there when it comes to the new DLSS and new frame generation, but it's far clearer now with the newer generation. They also showcased here the difference between the new and the older version of DLSS. So you can see how the left side has far more ghosting going on, especially with background characters where you see the most egregious ghosting that happens. But this is like very noticeable. You would see that, well, compared to on the other side, you know, not nearly as much. So that Vaseline smear that people complain about when it comes to this AI generative framing, that it actually is being genuinely improved with the next generation. But also same thing when it comes to the performance, when it comes to multi-frame generation, which actually does create a bit of input latency. So it's something you wouldn't want to use like if you're an FPS gamer, right? Playing Valorant or Halo or any Call of Duty game or whatever, right? This is more for people who want to have a much more like visually impressive experience, which you would have with like RPG games and story action-based games and stuff like that. And they actually showcased this frame generation input latency on Digital Foundry's video as well. Now, I hate to borrow their videos so much, but they do such a great job and they actually had access to this stuff. For me, I'm just a lonely gamer over here, just really interested in this topic. But interesting thing is you actually, in some software games, or at least they showcase in Cyberpunk, you actually do have the choice between having 2x frame gen, 3x, or 4x frame generation. Now, new frame generation does create more input latency. I think they did say it averages about 6.5 milliseconds more input latency compared to 2x compared to 4x. But they did also mention you have a 75% increase when it comes to performance. So an extra 7 milliseconds on a game like Cyberpunk, I mean, I think I'll take the frames in that situation. But I guess my quest to learn more about how this actually performs, because this is definitely something you need to actually like have in your hands, right? Well, at least on your screen to truly understand like how it does affect performance. And Linus did have a quick early access when it comes to how the performance is. And he did mention how there is still a bit of ghosting, as he points out here with the numbers here on the screen using multi-frame generation, that there is still a bit of a ghosting effect that happens when it comes to stuff. So it's not flawless. It definitely still has a lot of room for improvement. But all this information is still so new. The cards are going to be coming out this month, and also I think also a couple are coming out in February as well. So once we have the general public getting their hands on it, getting just out there in the wild, see what the performance is going to be like, then we could truly know like how great or how awful DLSS 4 is and multi-frame generation will act on our systems. I'm excited about this kind of stuff because I think this is going to be a huge benefit for people who are more budget end gamers, right? Being able to get that quality of performance at a lower price point. I think this is where you're going to see a lot more people with like 5070s, with people with lower end budgets, be able to access that type of performance at the much lower price point as well. And I think when it comes to the grand scheme of just gaming in general, this is really going to benefit your low-end budget gamers rather than your high-end, like people who always buy the whatever 90 version of a 40 or 30 or 50 90. Those people I don't think are going to see that much benefit from this, but the low end, huge benefits for the specialists, especially even like laptop gamers as well. Remember this date, January 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're having the new Xbox Developer Direct, showcasing a bunch of games that we already know, but a new game. And there's one notable game that's coming out next month that's not even in this rotation for whatever reason at Developer Direct. But the games that we will be reviewing when it comes to this Developer Direct are obviously Doom, The Dark Ages. This is just going to be amazing. South of Midnight, which you've seen previously. Expedition 33, specifically quoting them on this about the new game, stated that, and visit a surprise location to see another studio's brand new game. For the longest time, we actually were predicting to see maybe the Oblivion remake that's currently in the works, maybe in the Fallout 3 remake that's currently in the works as well. We do know that these are happening as they were leaked FTC documents, and so the official documents from Bethesda, ZeniMax, that yeah, this is happening, but calling it a brand new game makes you think it's a completely new IP or just a new iteration of a new game, which I would think that like it would have to possibly be maybe even Elder Scrolls 6. It's like in a video I mentioned earlier, it's been 7 years, and I just kind of get that vibe for possibly a mention of Elder Scrolls 6 just because it's mentioned Doom The Dark Ages, which is about a Bethesda-owned property from id Software, but then also saying, and visit a surprise location to see another game studio within the same sentence. So I'm curious if it does have any ties to Bethesda. That's just me going like far off the deep end of really reading between the lines. Or this mystery game here, guys, could be, just hear me out on this one, it could be the next Halo game. I'm just saying, it was revealed that it's currently in the works right now, just at the Halo HCS event, which I was at. It was really cool to be part of that reveal. But we don't really know like what the game is. We just know that Halo has switched to Unreal Engine 5 and they renamed the studio to Halo Studios from 343 Industries. But this was more just like a tech demo, I think, just to kind of showcase what they're able to accomplish with this new tech here with Unreal Engine. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh my God, it's the CE remake that's coming in. It could be, but I don't know if that really was confirmed with this trailer, because now you see here with Master Chief in that classic Master Chief armor from CE, holding the M60 pistol and stuff like that. But the thing is, I want to just kind of throw out there that these are Halo Infinite assets that were put into Unreal Engine. Like the Master Chief that we have right there is from Halo Infinite's bundle, so it's just imported into there. The elites that we saw in this trailer are from Halo Infinite as well. And I would assume that M60 pistol probably cut content from Halo Infinite, because there's a plethora of cut content just never saw the light of day from 343 while developing for Halo Infinite. So I don't necessarily mean this confirms a CE remake. I think it would be awesome to see what they could do with it. But it would be actually a proper time to actually reveal this. But I think since it is a mystery at this point, that with whatever game they're looking to reveal, a brand new game, that I would think you would probably highlight it being Halo, would get more attention maybe than like a bunch of question marks. But I also could just leave it up to be a surprise. Again, I'm just throwing out the possibilities, guys, of what this mystery game could be. It could also just be something completely different that we just haven't had a chance to see yet. It just really just depends on what Microsoft is looking to do with it. But my hopes would be Halo, but I would assume that you probably wait to reveal whatever the next Halo game is for the June showcase that we get every year from Xbox. But there's one game that's not part of this developer direct, which I'm really surprised that it's not there, because this is one of Xbox's biggest titles releasing now this year, originally planned for 2024, and that was Avowed. It's set to release on February 18th. Now, the big thing, I understand that, yeah, like it was showcased in last year's developer direct, makes a lot of sense why they would leave that space open, because I don't really know if there's really much else to talk about when it comes to Avowed, right? Just because it's was part of like the previous developer direct last year, and they've really just spent this time to delay the game to give it just that extra edge of polish that these games definitely need when it comes to making sure that when they do release, they're very well received. People are enjoying them. You can actually just play the game and have fun with it, and not have to deal with technical bugs or things just not working. So there wouldn't really be anything else to talk about or add to this discussion of Avowed, because it's still the same game, the same type of talking points we would have. It'd just be more just like, hey, remember, it's coming out in a couple weeks, so pre-order please, or just buy Game Pass. But let's talk about the stuff that we do know about the developer direct and what to look forward to and what to really expect from this showcase. Let's talk about the heavy hitter that I think a lot of people, at least on this channel and our community, are going to be really looking forward to, and that's Doom: The Dark Ages. Just because of how amazingly badass the last two Doom games have been, right? It's completely revitalized the franchise and people's interest in this like 30-year-long running franchise. Like, people are excited about this, especially this was probably one of the best showings we had at the Xbox showcase back in June of 2024, right? We saw some gameplay. It was a hype trailer. Like, this is exactly how you get people excited for your game. And it hasn't really been much discussed about Doom: The Dark Ages. Like, what is this game truly doing that's different than like Eternal or 2016 Doom? And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to talk about when it comes to this. Like, why go to the Middle Ages besides just it being a really cool scene? But knowing Doom, it could just be that. They're like, hey, it would be cool if we had like swords and shields, like a chainsaw shield with it, just because why not, right? We do have some information from the game director himself about Doom: The Dark Ages, talking about the game design when it comes to this game being much more classic Doom. Anyway, both remaining like the new modern technology, but kind of like bringing back that old school Doom feeling. Quoted here saying, if you're playing was like playing Doom Slayer now, saying if you're an F-22 fighter in Doom Eternal, this time around we wanted you to feel like an Abrams tank. It means you're more powerful and grounded. We're making strafing to aim a thing again. You'll be weaving between projectiles just like you did in the original Doom to deliver that super shotgun blast to the chest. It almost creates this three-dimensional shoot 'em up puzzle that you're weaving your way through, which is definitely much more classic Doom, right? Just that one perspective, dodging, shots left and right. So I actually might be a little bit more interested with this one, just because the previous Dooms were just like maybe a little too cracked out for me. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old, but that's kind of how I feel. And that kind of information, I think, is what we're really going to find out with Doom: The Dark Ages when it comes to Developer Direct. Just trying to give you an idea of like the feel, the gameplay, the philosophy behind it, and also hopefully get some more gameplay shots on there, because I mean, this game just looks so badass. I mean, that's what it's been doing such an amazing job with when it comes to Doom in the last 9 years now at this point, since the release of that, probably more 10 years if we count the development of the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to this. This is probably my biggest hype game, I would say, for Developer Direct. I feel like this showcase is going to be a major time for South of Midnight to really make their case of why you should play this game. We've seen it's a third-person action-adventure game, right? But why play South of Midnight, right? What's like the gameplay loop? We understand like the tonality, the type of stories, the mythology that they're grabbing from like the Louisiana South and stuff like that, which is a really interesting aspect we have never really seen touched in gaming before. So this will definitely play into a new aspect of it, but maybe learn more about like the gameplay style and also like different type of settings you might be able to turn off, because the stop action animation can be turning off a lot of people from playing it, myself maybe even included. I have heard that you actually can change those settings a little bit so it's not so choppy while you're playing the game. But I also think it also kind of adds to like the visual art style and vibe to the game. So it really just kind of depends on like how they actually want to go about playing this. Like you can see we're here in the gameplay, like the world's moving at 60 frames, but the character's moving at like what, 15 or something like that. Kind of a little jarring for me personally, but I'd like to see, again, probably just be something similar to this, what we have with this showcase here. I believe this was at the Xbox showcase, but kind of just more of the same, right? Nothing too crazy, not revealing a whole lot, but kind of just giving you like the general idea of like maybe a big reveal, like, oh my God, the other game that really needs to make its case is Expedition 33. We saw this again at the Xbox showcase, visually just incredible, right? Like this is just kind of insane, like how this game is visually. It is a bit interesting as it has a bit like that French-esque, I believe you call it, art style to it, which we haven't really seen before too much in gaming. It is a turn-based RPG, which is kind of like almost making a resurgence now, especially with Baldur's Gate 3, the way that played out. But I think turn-based is kind of making its way back in, which kind of adds a little bit different type of strategy and not being so tied to just being quick, fast-paced action. You can be a little bit more methodical with it, and maybe a little bit kind of like old school Final Fantasy in a way, but like with this type of art style and also on the Xbox platform, likely part of also Game Pass. So that's gonna be pretty exciting to see like how they justify their position of like why you need to play this game, right? Why Expedition 33 compared to anything else? It's gonna be really interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, that big question being, what is this mystery game that we're gonna be seeing here? A brand new game on top of that as well, which, I mean, brand new, it depends on how exactly you refer to it as brand new, right? Like, is it a new iteration of the franchise? A remake is technically a brand new game. I'd say, given the information that we know that's out there, the current speculation would either be the Oblivion remake in Unreal Engine, which we've talked about previously here on the channel, possibly the Fallout 3 remaster remake that we've talked about, again, also previously on the channel here, or it could be Elder Scrolls 6, since it's been 7 years since we had that trailer. Like, what's going on with that game over there, Todd? However this Developer Direct plays out, I definitely will be live streaming it here on YouTube and on Twitch. So if you guys want to keep up to date, make sure you subscribe. Halo and Flight Simulator coming to the Switch, along with Hellblade and Gears of War on PlayStation. Well, there's a lot of rumors going on right now. And that's thanks to Nate the Hate. He's a rather credible leaker out there. That's the reason why you've been probably hearing this information going around recently. On his most recent podcast, he did talk about other games that are coming to like Switch and also the PlayStation. Here's what he had to say.
So games that I have heard will be released multi-platform in 2025 beyond the obvious include Flight Simulator will come to PlayStation 5 and Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Halo, the Master Chief Collection
Yeah,
will be coming
there you
to
go.
PS5.
There it is right there. Talking about the Master Chief Collection coming to the Switch and also PlayStation as well. I mean, I think this would also fit in with the current plan that Xbox has as a platform where they're looking to be much more than just a console and an exclusive game developer. They're looking to be just a full-on publisher where you can just play their games wherever you want, however you want. But yeah, this is just one guy that says it. Some guy throwing a leak and a rumor out there, right? He's just saying, like, trust me, bro, when it comes to the sources here. But there are some collaborations coming along with this, especially with Jez Corden over here on Windows Central. Made a similar article talking about it, and he said he was able to corroborate this, or saying I can corroborate independently that our own sources that all the above are likely true. It seems like Microsoft isn't stopping here, though, talking about saying having games like Flight Simulator and Master Chief Collection both come to multi-platform like PlayStation and Switch too. But not stopping there, meaning that they'll have some other games coming in, much like Hellblade 2, Age of Mythology, and Gears of War Ultimate Edition are slated to come to the PlayStation 5 this year, though he's not quite sure if it'll happen with the Switch 2. That one's a little tricky. Can you imagine like Hellblade 2 on a Switch? I mean, I couldn't imagine that being good. But it is actually reported that the Switch 2, again, these are all currently specs and rumors, but there have been a lot of leaks going around about the Switch 2. And one of them being that, I think Digital Foundry mentioned it, saying that it will be about the PS4 Pro level of performance when it comes to the Switch 2. So you can see games like Master Chief Collection actually performing rather well on the Switch. But this isn't just a one-sided deal with Xbox giving out all their IPs. They also have some IPs coming to Xbox here, specifically mentioning from Jez Corden here, who was a rather credible insider, saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake should be hitting Xboxes in 2025, with Rebirth, which was up there for Game of the Year for 2024, aiming to come for 2026. So there is still some give and some take when it comes to IPs coming and going when it comes to Xbox. But yeah, that's two rather credible insiders with their own sources corroborating their own stories independently. That's rather telling, wouldn't you say? Especially since we've heard this previously from Xbox, specifically Phil Spencer, saying that there are no red lines when it comes to what games can go where on different platforms. I'm sure a lot of people viewed Halo as like that one of those red lines, right? Where it could be one of those titles where like, hey, let's keep that on Xbox because Halo is such a strong identity with the platform, right? Basically made the original Xbox something that people actually wanted to jump in and play because it was just Halo CE, game of a generation, game of a lifetime type of game right there, right? But the thing is that, like, yeah, Halo, while still people want it, or it's definitely still a fan base out there, it's definitely diminished in popularity. It's definitely diminished in the, I guess you call it the zeitgeist, or the conversation of just games in general, right? No one's really talking about Halo. Not very many people are playing Halo besides like the dedicated people who will play whatever Halo is out there because it's Halo and they want to play it. So I would say moving to multi-platform when it comes to Halo it's just beneficial to this entire franchise as a whole. I'm sure some people out there who like bought Xboxes because they wanted to play Halo specifically, well, you can still enjoy that, right? But to me, it feels like it's just a general trend that we're starting to see in gaming more often, right? Where platforms are becoming less and less significant, and being able to maximize profits and maximize reach is being prioritize higher than exclusivities and reasons why to buy these consoles, especially since a lot of the consoles are being sold at a loss. These publishers subsidize these consoles just so people can get inside that ecosystem, but once they do, they kind of have you by the balls a little bit right there to get you to pay more money into their system. Now, if you're someone who bought into these platforms, specifically Xbox, you probably feel a little cheated though, right? Because it is an investment, right? These consoles aren't cheap, especially in today's economy. Like when you choose a platform, it's a significant choice to you that you want to justify the cost behind it and the reason why you jumped into it. And you feel like that your investment to the platform is being devalued because you can experience those same games on different platforms, which I can understand that sentiment, but I think for the most part, you got to think also just on the side of Xbox, right? If you want to keep delivering such, Xbox quality games that you want to keep playing on your Xbox, well, the Xbox needs to figure out other ways to reach out and get more revenue because they are third fiddle when it comes to all the major platforms out there, especially compared to what they were like during the 360 era. And I would say that this image right here does a really great job of showcasing like the differences between PlayStation and Xbox, and how you see like the current sale on Xbox, like, yeah, I'd say the recent consoles weren't really that much of a serious upgrade, right? Especially since for how long it took for like cross-generation to kind of get X out a little bit, since it was pretty slow for people to make that switch over the series because of like the chip shortage and how difficult it was to get these consoles. But even then, you can still see it like with PlayStation 5, it's generally going up still in a rather linear format, where compared to Xbox, it's kind of arching off a little bit right here. And, you know, the cost of gaming, the cost of development, it's not getting any cheaper. The cost to make a game on PlayStation is still going to basically be the same cost it is on Xbox, but Xbox is limiting themselves by staying on the platform. So this is just their way for maintaining viability within the industry. Now, if MCC is going to PlayStation and Switch, you would have to think that maybe the next Halo game as well could be multi-platform. I think that would be greatly beneficial. If anything, it could even help revitalize the franchise a little bit, bringing Halo to a whole new expanded audience of gamers out there, especially on the PlayStation side of things. That platform is definitely much more known for their narrative single-player experiences. Like, yeah, they have multiplayer games out there that are popular. They had that Call of Duty deal for the longest time, right? But they don't really have like that banger of an exclusive shooter that, say, like Microsoft has with like maybe even Gears of War and Halo, right? Especially with the little bit more of the boomer shooter generation, which I kind of fall into with those millennials. But this would definitely get people excited to jump in to play Halo. This probably would be people's first time to get a chance to play Halo, get a chance to play whatever this next Halo game might be, rumored to be the CE remake. But I think Master Chief Collection is a great way to start to get people in that franchise. I mean, sure, many of us remember this impromptu podcast, like when all these rumors started happening about like Sea of Thieves and these other games going multi-platform that were traditionally Xbox only, right? Like they were setting the stage to get you prepared, like, hey, there are going to be other games going on to other systems and there are no red lines. That's specifically what Phil Spencer said. This would be a red line game that you would think, but hey, you know, you gotta grow whenever you can. Like the numbers need to keep going up. And maybe I'm just biased. I don't really feel any like animosity or anger or upset about this kind of stuff because I'm mainly a PC gamer nowadays. But I am an Xbox fan compared to PlayStation just because I like their games more. I mean, I'm buying the Game Pass. So the Brute Force trailer for the new operation just launched, guys. So let's check it out. Let's check out the trailer. Then we'll dissect and break it all down. Talk about all the new things coming to Halo Infinite very soon here. Oh, there you go. Yep. It's Castle Wars. It's coming. Dude, not gonna lie, this trailer's kind of hype right now for Castle Wars. But I mean, I think we've been playing Castle Wars since, what, Halo 4? I think is when it came out. 8 maps. That's actually really good. Eric Boo carrying the content. Already talked about this leaked content out with the Brute armor set. Oh yeah, we've seen that one before. Utilizing the grapple shot, that's gonna be insane. And yeah, Brute Force operation.
Not that dramatic, but it is action-packed. Did you say action sack?
Pog action sack coming in later in the operation, so most likely about 2 weeks. Usually seasons be about the cadence of when we get these mid-operation updates, since they only last about 4 weeks. So yeah, Castle Wars, Action Sack, and a new Operation Pass. We actually know what this Operation Pass is going to look like. So let's check out what this new update has to offer for us all in-game right now. When we first boot up the screen, you do see the bonus edition here of this new Hydra, which looks absolutely sick. And this armor set here, it's actually not too shabby looking itself either. Let's check out the reward track here in the game. I'm pressing F, view reward track. It's not doing anything. There we go. There, now it works. Take away my webcam so you can see what we're looking at here. This is the bonus combo little deal you get for buying into the Operation Pass, which is 500 credits. I mean, this is a pretty sick looking build for a Hydra. This is exactly what you'd think the Banish would look like. I am not expecting this to have any gameplay implications with the blade on there or anything like some bladed weapons in Halo Infinite to actually do more damage in melee. But since this is a cosmetic, I don't expect to see anything happening like that. This is just going to be something that looks pretty freaking cool. Comes also with a coating on it. Probably showcases a little bit better on the Hydra itself, but I mean, that's another thing for your little bonus right there. So if you like the Hydra, now's your opportunity. But let's get right into the rest of the pass here. You can see we do get a weapon charm at the start, which is way more interesting than a typical like emblem or backdrop that we normally get. So that's really cool. Your Spartan points. Now I have seen the armor set here previously. This armor set is sick looking. I've showcased it previously on the channel, and this is at level 5. You get one of the knee pads here, or I guess you get the knee pads. That just looks great right there. Some more Spartan points. The chest piece again looks really sick on top of that. Again, I think these were all just like, there was supposed to be like a brute, full-on brute season, right? That was supposed to happen. That, you know, we never got that season 6 that was supposed to come for us. This coding looks pretty interesting. I like the coloring on it. Don't really know if it'll be something I'll definitely utilize a bunch, but if it's new and I earn it, I'll definitely like to use it, play around with it. The shoulder pads though, oh my god, these look amazing, dude. This is probably the best brute armor set that we've had in the game so far. And so these are definitely something you're very worth grinding out for. Like, be cool to see like how the different coatings interact with the geometry on this. And ultimately landing on the helmet. Let me remove my face cam here so you can see what we're looking at here. This helmet, I mean, I think the helmet looks all right. Definitely very banished brute style for sure. And then you also do get the face covering on it, which I don't know, it reminds me of like the Traveler. Who was the guy in Destiny 1 that like told you all the stories of the Traveler and stuff like that? Maybe his name was the Traveler. I can't remember exactly, but it definitely gives me those vibes. And since it's an update, you know we gotta do it. You gotta check out the shop and see what shenanigans are happening in here now. We do have the bundle of 3,200 credits right here, which gives you all the little goodies you would expect. I mean, again, like I think we've showcased these armor sets previously being leaked out. They look awesome. All the brute armor in this game is so sick looking, especially this one has like teeth on it. That's awesome. Of course, the hard part is that it's part of this bundle that costs what, 32,000 credits. I mean, like, look at this. Is this a sniper rifle? I mean, yeah, I think it's this. Dude, this looks, oh my god. If I could just get this for 500 credits, dude, oh my god. This looks so, you know, this had to be a planned weapon that just never came out for Halo Infinite, right? This must have been just some cut content. Again, that looks sick as well. I mean, I'm not trying to hype up the store too much, but like, oh, these coatings look good. This weapon geometry looks amazing, dude. This is going to be a tough thing to pass on, but I know I'm going to pass on it just because I'm just not super into buying into all these type of microtransactions. But you also can get these out separately. Sadly, you can't get the weapon geometry by itself. Tends to be a typical thing with Halo Infinite right now. But god, dude, that sniper, oh my god, dude, this looks so sick. Oh, that's tough to pass on. But dude, imagine if that was like an actual weapon that you could play around with in the game. That would be so cool. But you know, at the shop, it's gonna shop. But check out the stuff you actually can earn in-game with the exchange here. Again, like the Haunted helmet, still there if you guys want to unlock it. The Bellis helmet's in there now, which that's a great helmet. Got another piece of armor right there. Again, these are all just kind of lost stuff. Oh my gosh, here you go. For all you Unicorn fans out there, you can unlock the attachment. It doesn't really showcase well in the preview screen, but all you Fotis fans out there, here's your chance to get your Unicorn horn if you really, really wanted that. They also have a banished flare knife right here as something you can unlock in the game as well. Some of the previously available content now in the exchange. So you guys, that's your opportunity there to get that cool unlockable stuff. Then what can you do to play in the game when you have a multiplayer? Yeah, Castle Wars. We showcased this earlier. It comes with 8 maps, which is actually kind of a lot of content for such a simple drop of Castle Wars. I didn't even know this was actually coming. This Gothic map looks amazing. Again, this also, I mean, it's all Forge, right? This is, the Forgers in this game are absolutely insane. They're mental. They're mad lads. They make the coolest looking maps, stuff that's like dev quality things that you can play in the game. All these maps look amazing. We'll definitely check out how the gameplay is later in this video. But then a really cool thing is that we actually had Action Sag revealed to us, guys, which is the longest running thing we've been anticipating for Halo Infinite, I think forever, which I've been following Halo Infinite news for the longest time. So back in 2022 in October is when we first had the first mention of Action Sag, and I've been holding on to this tweet in my document for so long. This is from Zach Boyce, who used to be part of Halo. Now he's part of the Valorant team over there. But he did mention in a reply to one of the questions here from a user saying on his questionnaire, why isn't Social Slayer called Action Sack and all that kind of stuff? Because this is when they first added in like some of the wacky modes that you've had previously. So Action Sack has kind of been Infinite previously, but Zach Boyce did provide an answer saying, have a different idea for Action Sack, particularly when we start getting our hands on WoW stuff the community makes in Forge. So we've had like somewhat Action Sacky type of modes, remember like little mini Slayer and stuff like that. So this is actually finally happening 2 years later. Better late than never, I guess. So what kind of stuff can we expect with Action Sack? Well, it's gonna be a much more different experience, much more wacky and fun, but it also has to be something that's a little bit competitive in a way, so you can measure scores, so because someone has to be a winner in Action Sack, where if you're playing in custom games, that's not necessarily the case. A very popular mode we've seen in the Action Sack previously is Sumo. This is a video here from iSpyful talking about one of the Sumo modes that was made soon after the launch of Halo Infinite's Forge. And we had like mini Sumo, which I think is something we could definitely see, just like give it like a Halo Infinite flair to the game mode. We could also just have typical like Warhawk Sumo, which I think we've had in Halo 5. We've had it in, I think also in Halo 4 and Halo 3 as well. So we could just see like the traditional Sumo coming, but it would be fun to see a variation like this being brought in to kind of spice it up a little bit. Now, Call of Duty did this just recently with their event. I don't see why Halo couldn't do this. There is a Squid Game red light, green light available for you to jump in and play through custom games. And I would be shocked if we don't see this put in the Halo Infinite Action Sack mode, especially with Squid Game Season 2 being out right now. Obviously, there might be like some copyright infringement that's happening there that could not allow this to be a playable official mode from the developers at Halo Studios to be playable, but I would love to have something like this be available in Action Sack, because you can actually have a winner. Again, like you do have the people up here that are just kind of sitting around looking at watching you play, which is not exactly conducive for online matchmaking, as people would just leave once they have to stand there and watch you play. But that's the kind of thing you have to take into consideration when making a Action Sack mode. But there's a lot of different possibilities out there, and I would really look forward to see what the community and what Halo Studios can come up with. But how does Castle Wars play out in Halo Infinite? Well, my man, there is only one true way to find out. Anyway, we're joined a match in progress here. It did take quite some time for this to actually load up, but I think it's really just kind of comes from the game mode just being new. We'll try a little slippy slide here. Oh my god! I will say, initial impression that the performance on this is actually pretty good. I'm kind of shocked by that, because previously it was not good at all. There we go. We get a little bit slippy slice. What am I saying? I don't even know. What words am I even trying to use right now? I don't even know. Gotta go for a splatter. Come on. Get him. Get him. Yes! Oh, man. Everyone gets a grapple shot at this. This is going to be wild. Hey, Arthur Bloodshot. This is one of the major forgers in Halo Infinite. He's made like the Halo 3 refill plays, made a ton of maps with that one, specifically like the Mountain Dew map. He made that. So that's kind of fun to get a chance to play against him in this first game. But hey, man, the Halo community, you know, we're a large community, but also pretty small at the same time. Oh, we got no! I want to see what the castle looks like up top. Like, this is just insane how well the forging is on this. Like, it just looks so cool that you can like make like a castle-like map in Halo Infinite's Forge with a little drop down area right there. Okay, this is where the flag is, and you just kind of just jump off of this. Okay, it's pretty simple, straightforward. I mean, that's kind of like what Castle Wars is all about. Dude, that was cool. And let's do a little slide maneuver here. Okay, never mind. Oh, let's grab a razor back here. Okay, jump on the back. Come on, squad. Let's do this. Come on. I need you, boys. All right, we'll just go. We're just gonna have to go. Let's go in. We're going in. Can't be stopped. Won't be stopped. Damn it. I was very stopped. Well, that was a rough start. Well, funny thing is, I just got an invite from Arthur to join in and play, and I did. And then the game crashed. Well, Assassin's Creed Shadows has been delayed once again. Just announced the other day here on their Twitter page saying that, yeah, we appreciate the patience and everybody, but the game's releasing on March 20th now. And while this delay certainly comes as a bit of a shock, because we were all thinking, okay, this extra time is probably all they really need, but delaying another month gives me one, a little worried, but also this probably has a different reason why they pushed it back as well. And now that the dust has settled a little bit from the initial announcement of this delay, we actually have some information from the Insider Gaming here talking about why it was pushed back, but I think there's also some external reasons behind that as well. And despite this recent delay, preview events for media and creators are still on track to happen, so we're actually going to know very soon how this game is actually going to play out and why Ubisoft really needs this game to land. If you guys like these type of videos, like and subscribe is always appreciated, but let's get right into those details. So here's the official statement from Ubisoft about why they decided to delay again for Ubisoft's next Assassin's Creed game. Stating here, saying as part of our renewed focus on gameplay quality and engaging day one experiences, it has been decided to provide an additional month of development to Assassin's Creed Shadows. And continuing on, saying that this additional time will allow the team to better incorporate the player feedback gathered over the past 3 months and help create the best conditions for launch by continuing to engage closely with the increasingly positive Assassin's Creed community. Now, I don't mean to be like, nah, but I mean, the recent gameplay trailer here showcased that, like, what, 60,000 likes to 111,000 dislikes on the recent YouTube video on Ubisoft's channel. Obviously, YouTube likes and dislikes are not everything, but it is a general measurement of the community sentiment behind this game. Obviously, there has been some online controversy surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows, and we're just not gonna get into that with this video. I think it's just internet outrage for the sake of outrage, and it's not really truly going to affect how the game performs, because people just want a good Assassin's Creed game. And so does Ubisoft, like, really badly, mainly because there's been a lot of talk about a reported buyout from Tencent just because of this year for Ubisoft, and in most recent years just being so bad for the company financially. You can see right here that the stock price for Ubisoft for the past 5 years is probably the lowest it's ever been. So if the executives want to stay in power for Ubisoft, they need this game to land. Now, even though Ubisoft did state that they are moving it because they want to polish the game up a little bit more, and we have had some information from like Tom Henderson talking about that as well, right? Saying that they've actually hit some snags when it came to the development, so they want like a couple extra weeks just to make it run better. So I mean, like, yeah, extra time is always good when it comes to development, but I think there's some external reasons why they decided to push this game back a little bit so it can have better sales performance. Because February is actually looking to be a rather stacked month, which is actually kind of surprising for a year, but I think just this general trend with game releases that like the winter sales are, well, better, not necessarily needed for games to succeed. If anything, they help succeed other ways. Like you have Kingdoms Come Deliverance, which this game might be a bit of a sleeper game, released on February 4th. You had Sid Meier's Civilization 7 releasing on February 11th, Avowed releasing on February 18th, and another really big game, Monster Hunter Wilds, which people are going crazy for this game, playing the betas and stuff like that, February 28th, and being released on February 14th initially. That would have just been a really tight release schedule for them. Now compare that to March, it definitely seems a bit less competitive right here. We have like Split Fiction, I don't even know how to pronounce that one, but I don't even know about that one, but it seems to be like it's another kind of remaster games, was not really going to hit that hard, right? Lost Records, Xenoblade Chronicles X might probably be the biggest launch in March, which is going to be like a definitive edition, so a re-release kind of thing. Football Manager 25, so not nearly as competitive for similar genres of games, especially with like Avowed and Kingdom Come Deliverance released in February. But like I stated at the top of this video, that they actually are still on track when it comes to their preview events for media and content creators, and we'll know very soon how this game actually plays out from the previews, as revealed here from a German gaming journalist, saying that around the 20th is when we'll see the previews get revealed by or content creators and media outlets. So we'll actually get some relatively honest hands-on experiences with Assassin's Creed Shadows to see like how well the game plays, because the biggest issue really has been the visuals and how the game is looking to perform, right? But Ubisoft has definitely made strides when it comes to the general performance of the game and having it look better, having the animations be much more smoother. I mean, I was watching this gameplay trailer just before making making this video. I did see some aspects of it that definitely could use like some little tweaks of improvement, but they're like not immersion breaking. But it seems like with the initial reveal compared to where the game is at now, it definitely seems like the community has warmed up to this game, and community sentiment has certainly improved with the delays and more reveals of how the game is actually going to play. Again, like we'll have to wait until the end of this month when these, hopefully those embargoes are lifted from media and content previews to really kind of see what this game actually plays from, or typical game creators out there. That we'll definitely cover that on this channel, what the reception of Assassin's Creed Shadows will be like. So obviously subscribe, people. But I'm definitely looking forward to this game. I thought this story aspect, especially with Yasuke being rather interesting, and also the dual protagonist, right, with Naoe with being more stealthy, Yasuke being much more physical and aggressive when it comes to his gameplay style, that I think is going to be an actually rather, and also being set in feudal Japan, I feel like this is going to be a really interesting Assassin's Creed to get a chance to play. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see when those embargoes get lifted and when the game actually releases for us to get a chance to play. Guys, if you enjoyed this type of videos, I hope you earned your like, maybe even a subscribe. If you guys liked it, thank you all so much for watching. If you missed any content, here's some more videos from me right here. Thank you all for watching. Catch you on the next one. Peace out.